Hi, friends. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Grow Intentionally podcast. I'm really excited to introduce you to Dr. Varun Gandhi. He's an amazing man who has so many talents. He's got his PhD in environmental engineering. Although he's no longer in that field, he's still able to help people and encourage them to drink water. He's known as the water doctor. And he's got an amazing course that's coming out to talk about your story and how you can use your story to impact the world. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So stay tuned. Dr. Gandhi, Varun, is that okay if I call you that? Okay, cool. He also is the creator of an amazing cleanse that helps clean your whole body, your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual body. And maybe we'll learn a little bit more about that too at the end. So let's jump right in and talk about how your story, why did you choose the importance of teaching people about their story? Varun?
Thank you so much, Gina. Love and abundance, everyone. I appreciate being here. I'm so grateful. Before I start about talking about my story, I want to do a little quick reminder for everyone. Through conversations, I realized that people don't drink enough water. Most of us are dehydrated, and I've read a book that says about 70% of diseases that currently exist can be treated by just drinking enough water. So I'm gonna encourage everyone, and Gina, you can join with me as right now, that we could just take a sip of water. Everyone, let's all do it together. Cheers.
Remember I taught you how you say cheers in Hawaiian?
Yes.
Do you know how to say it?
I actually don't. It's a little too complicated. How do you say it?
Okole maluna.
Okole maluna.
There you go.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
This is an interesting book that I've read. The book says that they want to have a paradigm shift in understanding how we drink water and why we drink water. Our body is 75% water, whereas the medicines that we take are treating the 25%, the solid part of our system. So nothing that we're taking into our body right now directly affects the 75% of our body, which is only water can do that. So by drinking enough water, you are hydrating 75% of your system. And that in itself is going to treat a lot of the diseases, cure a lot of your ailments just by itself.
How did you get interested in this kind of like a PSA, right? Like this is a public service announcement. Remember to drink your water. Was there something specific that happened in your life that got you interested in reminding people about water's importance?
Yeah, so my story has been where I have this traditional career, traditional trajectory of, hey, I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to get an advanced degree, go into the workforce, work as a consultant, earn money, live life, have a family, and, kind of that traditional trajectory. And as I was going through this, I started feeling very, very unhappy. I had gotten my PhD. I was already a doctorate in environmental engineering. Regardless, I had a high-paying, well-paying job. Regardless, I was still unhappy. I was in that job for a year and a half. At that time, I started feeling pains in my stomach. And these pains were related to the constant question of, what am I doing at this job? Why am I here? Every morning I'd wake up and I'd have this pain, and it would always ask me, why are you going to this job? You don't even care about it. Even though I was making a difference, it was related to the public health infrastructure in the sense of the drinking water that comes in the house. I was directly affecting that process. But regardless, I didn't feel like I was making much of a difference, because the quality in America, the water quality in America is already so great that maybe the difference that I made was like 0.2%. And I felt that I could do a lot more. I had a lot more in store for me in my life. And that's why I was, this unhappiness kind of came into me. And the signal I always got was, hey, it's time to move on. It's time to find something that you really care about. And along the same time, my dad, he gifted me one book to this day in my 35 years of my existence. And that book was about drinking water. Well, he gifted this book to me when in 2013, but I didn't do justice with it. I didn't read about it. I didn't pick it up. I was just like, oh, it's just another book. And I kept it on the shelf. It traveled. It was in Idaho. I received it. It went to Atlanta. From Atlanta, it went to California, and I still have it. And while I was in California, I picked up this book and I said, okay, there's something interesting about this book. So when I read this book, it's called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And this book talked about this paradigm shift that needs to happen within people. And I wanted to tell people about this, educate people about this paradigm shift, that if you just drink enough water, you can work on that 75% of your body that consists of water. And by doing that, you can treat all of your diseases, or at least 70% of your diseases. So I just want to remind people, because I think there is water is available everywhere. We don't value it enough. And if that is the treatment that we could easily just drink enough water every day and treat ourselves, we don't have to spend all of these, medical bills. We don't have to go into the hospital and waste a lot of time. I feel like there's a lot of benefit in just drinking enough water.
So this book traveled with you around, and then you finally said, I better read it.
Yeah, I finally picked it up. I'm like, you know what? It's been with me for about 6 years now. It's time to read. So I started reading it slowly. I mean, it's a slow read. It's a lot of science in it, a lot of research in it, right? But so the author of this book, he wrote it when he was in prison. And this is a legit book when it was written way back in the 80s and the 90s. In the prison in Iran by someone who's not really known. That this book has some good stuff in it, because no one wants you to know about it, right? That's why it wasn't like well promoted or taken all around the world.
Yeah.
And what he did is his research was based on, I can call it experiments, but real life people, real life experiences. That when he was in prison, people had ulcers and they were falling sick, and he couldn't explain. He was a doctor, but he couldn't understand why people were falling ill. They looked healthy on the outside, and then he realized just by giving them enough water for a short period of time, like within an hour, he flushed their system with water, and that within 3 hours they felt better. The pains went away and everything was back to normal. So he realized that water played a huge role in our system. And once he got out of jail, he started doing a lot more research, diving deeper into these paradigms and, looking at the paradigm shift. And that's when he came up with this book and wrote about it. It's a great book, and I encourage people to pick it up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that it's a sentimental, special book to you because your father gave it to you as well, which goes back to the importance of stories and how you can give someone a book and it becomes like a diamond to them, right?
Yeah. And that is essentially the story that I had in my mind, that, hey, my father has given me one book in my whole life, and this is it. And I need to do justice to read about it. And actually not read about it, just read about it, but care about what's in this book. And, in a way of, hey, let me educate other people and share this knowledge with other people. So that story was very critical. And my foray, or, me diving into stories, came about when I was kind of going through a very rough patch in my life. I had just gotten out of a bad relationship. Well, actually, the relationship was great, but the whole breakup was messy. So I'd gotten out of it, and it was very painful, a lot of suffering. And this is my whole time in Idaho when I was working at the job as well. So Idaho was my, like my cave, like diving into that darkness, those 2 years for me. While I was there, I picked up this book called The Book of Secrets by Deepak Chopra. That was my first book into diving deeper into spirituality. And as I was reading this book, about 85% of them just went over my head. It was way too advanced. I was just basic level. But one thing that stuck with me was this word called meditation. He talked about it a lot, and he expounded on the benefits of meditation. And so what I did is I said, hey, let me Google this. I'm a self-starter. I just wanted to learn more about it and try it for myself. So I Googled meditation and started meditating at home by myself. I left my job and I was back in Atlanta now, not knowing what I wanted to get into. But I said, you know what, I'm going to get into meditation. So I sat in a corner, facing the corner, and that's how I started meditation. I said, every day I just want to do 5 minutes. I just want to get to 5 minutes. So I would set a timer on my phone, set it aside, remove all of the distractions. All of my possessions were behind me, and all I saw was this crack in the wall, the center, the corner of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I did different kinds of meditations. I experimented, tried out many, many different things to see what worked for me. Every person's different, so everyone will have something that works for them and some things that don't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I found a lot of things that didn't work for me. So I would sit there for 2 minutes and I'd get distracted and I'd give up. And sometimes I would not even come back the next day, maybe come back the second day, the third day.
Mm-hmm.
But me coming back to it at some point down the road, at least 1 day or 2 days later, I kept that momentum going and I kept moving forward with it. So now one of my deep meditations, that's when this whole concept of storytelling came to me. What I realized is that at every moment of our lives, we are telling a story. When we're trying to make sense of our situation, when we're trying to connect the dots between multiple situations or multiple experiences that are going on in our lives, mm-hmm. that's a story that we are creating. And that's just one story, but we could put together thousands, unlimited, infinite number of stories to connect all of those dots, and that would still make sense to us. So the story is, in a sense, something that we create about the experiences in our lives, about the people in our lives, about the places that we go to. Everything in our life is a story that we are creating behind it to make meaning out of these situations.
Yeah, and I noticed during the pandemic, might be a little off, but in social media, the surge in people's stories and there has been up. More people are posting, what they're eating and where they're at and things. And I think that adds to the feeling of connection during this period of isolation for a lot of people. So that goes to show you that not only written stories, but also visual stories that we can use to lift people's spirits, inspire, motivate, teach. Yeah.
That's such a great point because the famous saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, words, story, but a picture can give you so much more, a whole lot more, including the emotion behind it. And I feel like I completely agree with you that these images have brought us closer to people, the foods that they eat, the places that they're going to, the TV shows that they're watching. I mean, we gain a lot of information and a lot of emotions behind each of these stories.
Yes, we do. And it's for me, someone who loves energy, there's energy in everything. And in our stories, the words that we choose, the expressions, our gestures, our energy aura, our energy body. I mean, we're always communicating, even if we don't even realize it.
Yeah, and the one thing I do is I surround myself with a lot of positive words. You mentioned words have power. Mm-hmm. So right in front of me, I have different affirmations that are sitting in a poster in a frame. Mm-hmm. And while I'm working, I see it every day right there in front of me. One of it says, "Be you." The other one says, "Yes, you can." The third one is a mandala that essentially means prosperity. And the fourth one says, "Express yourself." So each of these are certain truths that the messages that I needed for myself, at times. So like, for example, the reason I have express yourself is I've been working on expressing more of myself. I haven't been very vocal about it, but putting myself out there, interviewing folks on my podcast or coming on to your podcast, Gina, each of these is me stepping outside of my comfort zone and me expressing my story, expressing myself and my thoughts. So each of these affirmations play a particular role, have power, and in how I go about my daily life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I believe in the power of stories and the importance of us using our voice. And I don't, you don't know this about me, but I had thyroid cancer 2 years ago, 2020. And for me, like you're talking about the message of the pain you shared in your story earlier, every ache, pain, disease in our body is, there's a message or some kind of a communication our body has with us. And so my experience here in the throat chakra area, in my interpretation of it, is that I need to express myself more. I need to use my voice. And so doing this podcast is a healing for myself as well, to let my inner essence out. So yeah, it kind of adds to what you're talking about around stories, and how, and also around health, and how we can use our life lessons to teach others and to inspire others to take big steps out of their comfort zone and do things, meet people that they would have never met before, and have conversations about things that matter.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I picked up interviewing and podcasting for a similar purpose, is to be able to express myself, to be able to share authentically and be comfortable in these situations.
Mhm.
At the very beginning, the first 3, 4, 5 podcast episodes that I recorded, I would do it live. So I would go YouTube live and do everything live. So those first 5 episodes were very nerve-wracking. They were, I would play it back later, and I realized so many points where I could have said something, where I could have dived deeper into a particular topic, but because I was nervous, because I was just into myself a lot, I wasn't able to come up with those questions. I wasn't able to formulate those questions and think in that moment. What happens for me is, when I get flustered, when I get not really panic, because you can't really see it on my face, I play it off really well, but inside of me, it's all like there and it's all boiling. What happens is my mind goes away, and takes a walk, and it's like it's not there in this moment, and it's freaking out, it's somewhere else. And so in this moment, I just can't think. I think if you ask me a question, I'd probably give the complete wrong answer, even though, if it was like a yes or no answer, I'd give the complete opposite answer, because I wasn't thinking, I wasn't completely there. So I'd miss a lot of points, but then it took me a while to come into this moment. Like while I was doing the interview, I had to become very present. And when I became present, I was able to slowly kind of tame that feeling, the feeling of the nervousness. I was able to come into the moment and have conversations and be able to answer questions as a conversation, as opposed to something that's being scripted. My first few episodes were very scripted. All of the intros I would just read, just so that I wouldn't miss a word, so that I wouldn't mess anything up. But now I'm a whole lot more comfortable. And all of that came back to the stories that were going on in my head. The way I saw it is like a perfect analogy for this is, we're at a movie theater. Mm-hmm. We're watching a movie on a screen, and the screen is a tool that shows this movie. There's a projector in the back. That's another tool that's projecting a film. The film that exists in the projector is being projected onto the screen. This whole process, this whole mechanism is the same thing that happens in our life at every moment. The projector is our third eye chakra. That's our imagination. It's taking the film, our subconscious mind that's already programmed inside of ourselves. It's taking that film and creating images, and then projecting it out onto people, projecting it out onto places, projecting it out onto all these different things in our life. And that's our screen. The screen are the people, the places, everything that's going on in our life, every circumstance in our life is that screen that we're watching the movie on. And we ourselves are projecting this movie, and we are watching that movie by ourselves. So when I understood this process, that every moment we are doing this, now I can tap into that moment and change the story live as I'm going through this moment. And that was very powerful, becoming that aware of what my story is right now in this moment. That gave me the power to shift it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a visual of what's going on. Because like you said, our subconscious mind is constantly filtering information and storing it. And we have no idea of what our story is sometimes, because there's things in there that we aren't consciously aware of in our minds. So, and then there's the power of dream time and the stories that come from that, and the messages that come when we're sleeping. So we're just so amazing. And I think that the power of our stories can also be used for future generations. In fact, this morning, I was researching on YouTube for a speech I have to give to for a bunch of women in Afghanistan to teach them around goal setting. And I was watching Bob Proctor. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I was watching his some of his videos, and it just, just touched me that, wow, he recently left the planet, and yet his word, his voice, his message is still as powerfully living on YouTube, and that we can still learn from him, even though he's not here with us. And so that just made me realize this importance of leaving a legacy, leaving your voice behind, leaving your lessons, and even leaving it specifically for your family, and so capturing those moments for them. My mom told me something this morning around a story that I didn't know, around when she was pregnant with me, that she also had another pregnancy that didn't come to fruition. And so I didn't know that. And that's a story that I would not have known if I didn't have this open conversation with my mom. And so, like, our lives are constantly evolving, and how we're all connected, like you're saying, like this connection and interweaving that we have with people. Even like now I have a connection with you, even though we've never met. And so now we have a story together around our first podcast episode. And there's continual ways and means for us to get our lives elevated and lift up and grow together with people we don't even know, and continue the story.
Yeah, there was a research done where they took a group of kids, like third graders. They split up a classroom and they tested them. They gave them the same test. The only difference that they did is one set of kids, they gave them positive affirmations. So right before they took the test, they said, oh, this test is very easy. You're going to ace it. You're going to do so great. And while they were doing the test, they were also given positive affirmations. Great job. You're doing such a good work. The second group of kids, they were given negative affirmations. They said, oh, this test was extremely hard. You're not going to be able to get a good grade. You're going to be, fail and suffer through it. And while they were doing the test, they were also given negative affirmations. What happened is the results came out, and the first group, even though it was the same test, the first group fared a whole lot more better. They got a whole lot more A's. They got, not only that, they tested their blood chemistry. Mm-hmm. And what they found is that there was a lot more sugar in their blood level. And this is the group A. The sugar was created because they were excited. They loved this test. They were like, in such a great environment that their body reflected that. The second group of kids, their blood chemistry reflected toxins that were created because of the negative thinking. They had depressed energy. They had a lot more, their body language showed that they were kind of hunched over. They were, in a negative state, and you could see that. And their performance got affected with that. So because of the stories that they were surrounded by, because of the stories that were playing around in their environment, their outcome was directly affected by it. And that's such a powerful experiment, because it shows how what goes on inside of our head, the stories that we are creating about our own self, are the most important stories that we're ever going to create.
Yes, exactly. And it talks to the belief that we can choose, that this is a choice that we have to filter out the information that's coming in and choose the story that we want to live.
Yeah, at every moment we have this opportunity to choose, right? We could either look or have a perspective and only look at the negative in the situation, or we can have a perspective and only look at the positive in the situation. What can I learn from the situation? Yes, even though it may be the hardest thing you're going through right now, but there is always a silver lining. There's always something that you can gain from this situation, that you can learn from the situation, so that in the future you can apply these lessons, you can teach other people, and other people wouldn't have to go through the same mistakes that you went through. So I feel like, there's that perspective changing that story in their mind. And it's a continual process, right? We are habitual beings. Once we've created a story, that story is going to keep playing in our minds day in and day out until we say, okay, enough is enough. I am not happy with this result. I'm not happy with the way things have turned out in my life. I am done with this way of thinking. Now I'm going to flip over and switch to something else. And that's what happened in my life. That relationship caused me a lot of turmoil. And as I was reflecting back on those experiences, I realized that, hey, I was at fault too. It was 50% my responsibility in that relationship. And the way I acted was not in sync with what couples would normally do. I had jealousy. I expressed that in very, not friendly ways. And I could have done better. And I realized that later on. But it was the stories that were playing on in my mind in the moment that I'm this jealous person, that the male in the relationship is supposed to be that controlling person, I'm supposed to give permission to someone, things like that. And so all of those things were now replaying in my mind. I'm like, why did I do that? Why was I like this? And when I started doing that, again, this was helped or inspired by my meditation as well. I started switching that story. The story slowly started moving in the direction that I wanted to go in. My love life started switching and things became a lot more pleasant. My relationship with my life became a lot more pleasant. There was a lot of anger in my life before. Now there's a whole lot less anger, a lot more calm, responding to situations. Back then I would react a lot. So a lot of changes in my story just by what goes on in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful for all of us, because actually that is the root of illness, really, the emotions that we store in our bodies based on the negative stories that we're telling ourselves. Like I was telling you about the cancer, and you had mentioned around the stories we have around how we should be acting, like how a good wife would be. And you start to live in this misalignment or in any situation. But when you start to live an incongruent life, a life that's not truly an expression of who you are, then that story that you're telling can actually trap negative emotions in your body, which lead to disease. So it's important for us to tell the story, tell the truth, and not hide behind the lies of the stories that we don't have to listen to.
Yeah, I read somewhere, you brought up disease. I read somewhere that disease is prolonged dis-ease, when you have uncomfortable feelings about something for a long period of time, right? For a day, it's okay. For a couple of weeks, it's okay. But when that stays for months on end, it starts developing into that, those toxins start developing and accumulating in the body. Those toxins then start switching your body chemistry and start creating all of these different diseases that currently exist. So it's sitting with that discomfort for long periods of time. If you sit with that discomfort for a short period of time, you will be affected, but you'll be able to rejuvenate yourself because you're now going back to your original formula, going back to the origin, like how you originally were. And that will remove all of those toxins, remove all of those diseases. So if anyone is going through any kind of discomfort in their life, and that discomfort has been there for a while, you've always felt like this. If it feels like that, there's something that you need to do different. There's something that you should start switching. There's a story in your mind that needs to start moving in a different direction. And what has helped for me is something that I've created called a My Life film. You know that film that's in the projector? So I've essentially created a way to create your own film, meaning all of your past experiences, all of your past memories, all of your past, everything that's been going on in your life. And not only that, but now introspecting on how each of those past experiences have affected you. Because each of those past experiences have created a belief in your mind. And this belief has then stuck with you. And now you are operating from that sense of belief. So that belief you carry with it today at this moment, and you are behaving from that belief. And this My Life film allows you to take a step back and understand how each of these experiences have what beliefs they've created inside of you, how they have molded you. And not only that, you can then go back and change your story, because you can now recreate new experience. You can recreate new meaning out of those past experiences so that your future will start becoming different. You'll start moving in the direction that you really want to go in. This is your empowering stories are finally coming out.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's a wonderful tool. How can is there anything else you want to add before we end the podcast? Like, is there anything you want people to know about how they can reach you, or is there any other topics you'd like to cover?
Sure. So you can reach me on my website and Instagram. Both have the same name, Dr. Varun Gandhi. That's Dr. as in doctor, Varun, my first name, Gandhi, my last name, GANDHI.com. Instagram by the same name, Dr. Varun Gandhi. And essentially, I would encourage everyone to start paying attention to your stories. This is at some point, it's an automatic process. It goes on very instantly. You see something, you make meaning out of it, you feel the reaction, you feel your anger, and you express your anger. Like, for example, you're driving on the highway, you're driving on the freeway, the traffic is crazy in LA, you're on the road, someone cuts you off. Now you instantly get angry. This has happened to me so many times. Now instantly get angry, right? It was so fast, I didn't even have chance to create a story because my body created it just like that, right? So if you're not, for me, when I was not meditating, the story creation process was very quick, and I wasn't part of it. It all happened automatically by someone else, and I didn't have a say in that. When I started meditating, now I felt like, okay, finally I'm sitting at the table and I could start typing and creating that story on my screenwriting app. But until that point, I couldn't do that because it was so quick and so automatic. I wasn't even aware of it. So I encourage everyone that if you're not aware of the stories that you're creating, to sit down and take the space, meaning move away all of your distractions, set aside 5-10 minutes every day just to be with yourself. It could be in a dark room. It could be with some chants going on in the background, some music going on in the background, some frequencies going on, and close your eyes and just be. Sit there without thinking about anything else, without doing anything else, and just be. And giving yourself that space, now you're allowing your true self to come out.
Yes. And drink lots of water.
And drink lots of water.
Don't forget to take your water with you to the dark room.
There you go. Let's take another sip to that.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I enjoyed our conversation. Thank you, Varun. And remember, friends, go ahead and click down below and on the show notes and connect to him, and you'll learn more about that amazing cleanse we talked a little bit about, and some of the other ways. He has an online course around your stories that I'm sure you will love. Thank you, Varun. It's been fun.
Thank you. Okole Maluna.
Yeah, Okole Maluna. Aloha, everyone.